Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome to all our viewers. And in this particular video, we are going to discuss the PostgreSQL interview questions. So, guys, if you're working in IT, it is very important to have good understanding of databases. So now, every application in the IT industry, it has a front end, back end, and a database. So it doesn't matter what your profile is in the IT industry, whether you're a developer, you're a tester, or you're any sort of admin, it is very good to have SQL knowledge. And guys, PostgreSQL is one of the most popular databases out there. Like apart from PostgreSQL, we also have MySQL, SQLite, Microsoft SQL Server, and so on and so forth. But in this particular video, we are going to cover the most frequently asked PostgreSQL interview questions. So guys, till for beginners or the fresher candidates, now we will be covering a set of questions that are meant for the experienced candidates, like those folks who have at least 2 to 3 years of experience with PostgreSQL. So let's start with our first question. Describe triggers. So now in the previous we have seen how can we handle the errors in PostgreSQL. And in that particular question, there was one technique that mentions the use of callback functions. So basically, triggers, which are also known as callback functions, these are the specifications that a database must automatically implement whenever a particular kind of operation has been carried out. So what do you mean by that? So we normally define triggers for executing either before or after the insert, update, or delete operation. And that too, that can be done like either once per SQL statement or once per the modified row. So what happens is if the trigger event happens, the trigger function is invoked at the proper time for handling that particular kind of event. And now you must be wondering, why do we need to use triggers? So triggers allow you to ensure that the data integrity is preserved while modifying the database. So this was a short and crisp definition of trigger. The next question over here is explain multi-version concurrency control or MVCC. So guys, multi-version concurrency control or MVCC is an advanced technique of PostgreSQL. So with this particular feature, you can improve the database performance in case of the multi-user scenarios. So this indicates that when we query the database, every transaction views a snapshot of the database since it was some time ago, irrespective of the state of the inherent data. And now, what is the use of this particular feature? So this particular feature secures the transaction from seeing the inconsistent data that concurrent transaction updates on the similar data rows that can be induced. The next question is, what are the different logging mechanisms available in PostgreSQL and what is their purpose? So basically, PostgreSQL provides different kinds of logging mechanisms such as error logs to capture the errors and warnings, query logs to record the executed queries for performance analysis and debugging. And apart from this, you also have connection logs, and these logs can be used to track the connection attempts and disconnections to the database. The next question is, explain the difference between inner join and left join with example. So guys, in the previous questions, we have already seen what is join and what are the different kinds of join. But in this particular question, the interviewer wants you to explain inner join and left join along with examples. So what do you mean by examples? So you can mention queries as well over here. So as we have already seen in the previous questions, inner join is that particular join that returns only rows that have matching values in both the tables. Whereas a left join returns all the rows from the left table and the matching rows from the right table with nulls for non-matching row. So once you explain the definition again in this particular question, what you can do is you can give queries as well as examples. So over here, as you can see on the screen, the first query is that of an inner join. So how do you write an inner join? So inner join is written as select star from employees, which is your table, inner join departments on employees dot department id is equal to departments id. So over here you can clearly see we are using inner join on employees table, and from that particular table we are matching the department IDs. And the second query is that of a left join. So select star from employees left join departments on employees dot departments id and equal to departments.id. So I hope this clearly explains the difference between inner join and left join. The next question is, again, write a SQL query to find the total number of employees in each of the departments. So in this particular question, what you can do is you can mention the use of count function to aggregate the employee counts, and you can also specify the group by clause to group the results by department. And here we also need to highlight the importance of selecting the department column and the count of employees. So how do you write that query? So this is a very simple query, and this query can be written as select department ID, count star from employees, and group by department ID. So as you can see over here, we are selecting the column of department ID, and once we select that column, we are finding all of the employees from that particular department ID. So that is why we have written count star from employees and group by department ID. So once we write this query, it will clearly fetch us the results that will tell us the total number of employees in each department. The next question is, what are indexes in PostgreSQL and how do they improve the query performance? So guys, basically indexing is a very popular technique in any of the SQL based database like Postgres and all other databases. So what are indexes? So indexes are nothing but they are special database objects that enhance or improve the speed of data retrieval operations, and that is done by creating a data structure that allows for fastest searches. So the search results are improved significantly once you use the indexes. So just to give you an example, in if you're reading a book, so at the beginning of the book also you have index. So how do you use that index? Whatever page that you want to read, and the topic that you want to read is defined on that particular page number in the index. So with the help of index, you can easily navigate through the book. So similarly, in the database as well, indexing will help you for faster search. So they significantly improve the query performance by reducing the amount of data that needs to be scanned, although they can also introduce some overhead during the write operation. The next question is, write an SQL query to update the salary of an employee with a specific ID. So guys, now if you're an experienced or an intermediate candidate, you will be asked a lot of queries in the actual interview as well. So over here, what we need to do, we need to write a query to update the salary of an employee with a specific ID. So how do you do that? As you can clearly see, so here you have to mention the use of update statement to modify the existing records, and you have to use the set clause to update the column. And you must also mention the importance of where clause. And what is the use of where clause? We use the where clause over here to target the specific employee ID. For example, as you can see over here, the query will be update employees, which is our table, and we are using set clause, set salary. Salary can be any number or a number that you want to update for that particular employee. So over here we have written salary equal to 80,000, where ID equal to 123. So what this query will do, so this query is going to update the employees table, and we are updating the salary of an employee whose employee ID is 123. The next question is, explain the use of group by clause with an example. So over here, what you need to do is you need to first define the group by clause. Like, why do you use the group by clause? Like, group by clause is a way to aggregate the data based on one or more columns. And you must also mention that it is often used with aggregate functions like count, sum, or average. And once you provide the definition, you can also write an example, or you can also give an example over here. Like, the group by clause is used to aggregate the data based on one or more columns, and group by is particularly used along with aggregate functions like count, sum, or average. And to provide an example, what you can do is you can write a query like over here. As you can see, first we have written select department ID and the average salary from employees table, and all of those employees are grouped by department ID. So what this query will do, it will select department ID and average salary from the employees table, and all of those employees will be grouped by department ID. So department wise, you can see all of the different employees and their average salary by this particular query. The next question is, what are subqueries and how they can be used in PostgreSQL? So guys, subqueries are nothing but nested queries, like one query inside another query, which can be in the select, from, or where clause. So basically they are used to perform complex queries in a modular way. So subqueries can also be used to filter the data, compute the aggregate values, or even generate temporary results that can be joined with other tables as well. The next question is, write an SQL query to find the second highest salary from the employees table. So guys, this is another very popular and most frequently asked question in the actual interviews. So over here, if we have to find the second highest salary from an employees table, so it is obvious that you have to use the order by clause. And what is the use of order by clause? We have to first sort the salaries in the descending order. So once we do that, we have to use the limit clause as well to restrict the number of rows that can be returned. And once you do that, you have to highlight the use of subquery to find the second highest salary. So as you can see over here, to find the second highest salary from the employees table, first you have to rank the salaries in descending order, and then second, the second highest value. So what will your query look like? So as you can see over here, you have to select max salary from employees. So in this particular section, you have selecting the maximum salary from the employees, where now this is the clause that you have to use, like you have to use this condition where salary is less than, and then you have the nested query. So the nested query is select max salary from employees. So first the nested query will be executed, like first you will get results like select max salary from employees. This will select the highest salary, and then by using the less than sign, you are again using select max salary from employees where salary is less than the highest salary. So this automatically will give you the second highest salary. The next question is, write an SQL query to list all of the employees who joined in the last year. Answer this query, what you have to do is you have to mention the use of select statement, and with the help of select statement, what you will do is you have to retrieve all the employee records. So once you do that, you have to specify the use of where clause to filter the records based on the joining date. And after this, what you have to do is you have to explain the importance of date functions like now and interval to calculate the exact year. So over here you can see our query will look like select star from employees, which is our table, where, which is our condition, join date is greater than or equal to now, which is the current date, and till what duration? Interval is 1 year, like the previous 1 year. So from current date till last 1 year, you will get all of the employees that have joined. So based on joining date, you can filter all of the records from the employee tables. So it's very important to remember now function and interval in this particular query. The next question is, write an SQL query to create a view that shows the average salary by department. So in this particular query, to create a view that shows the average salary by department, what you can do is you can use the create view statement along with select query that includes average function and a group by clause. So what will our query look like? So our query will look like create view average salary by department as select department ID, average salary from employees, and group by department ID. So basically first you must understand that we are basically writing a select query, and before that select query we are creating a view. And what will that view look like? The view will look like average salary by department. So over here, select department ID and average salary, which is an aggregate function. We are selecting these two columns from employees table, and we are grouping them by department ID. So department wise ID, you are getting average salary, like you are getting this employees and their average salary with respect to department. And once you get those results, using those results, we are creating a view, and that view is called as average salary by department. The next question over here is, write an SQL query to find all the employees whose names start with the letter A. So guys, to find all of the employees whose names start with the letter A, what you can do is you can use the select statement and a where clause, like you can specify the condition using where clause. And Apart from where clause, what you have to do, you have to use the like operator. So what will your query look like? Your query will look like select star from employees table, like employees is the table name, where you're specifying the condition, where name is another column from the employees table, like is the an operator, and in single quotes you have to provide capital A and the percentage sign. So what does that percentage sign means? That only we are interested in the starting letter, which is the capital A, and after that whatever comes, it doesn't matter to us. So because we just have to find the employees whose names start with the letter A. So apart from this, if it would have been like find the list of employees whose name ends with A, so what would have been the query? So instead of A and percentage sign, what change we might have done? We just have written percentage sign and then capital A or small a. Okay. So this query will find all of the employees whose names will start with the letter A. The next question is write an SQL query to perform the full text search on a documents table. So guys, with PostgreSQL, full text search feature is used to perform the complex search on a text stored in the database. And for this particular query, what you have to do is you have to use TS vector and TS query data types for full text searches. And apart from that, you also have to use the match operator, which is 2 times at the rate, to check if the documents match the query. So to perform a full text search on a documents table, the query will look like select star from documents. This is our table name documents, where, and as I've told, we are using two data types over here, which is TS vector and TS query. So select star from documents where the condition is the data type to TS vector, which is the content, like the content that you are providing over here with TS vector. And then we have the match operator using 2 times at the rate. And then after that, we have to TS query the search term. The next question is, what are the common performance tuning techniques in PostgreSQL? So guys, the most common or frequently used performance tuning techniques in PostgreSQL include indexing. Now, as we have already seen, what is the use of indexing? We use indexing to speed up the data retrieval, and we also use query optimization tools like explain, analyze to identify and address the slower queries. So regular database maintenance tasks such as vacuuming and analyzing also helps to maintain the optimal performance of the databases. The next question is, explain the difference between a view and a materialized view in PostgreSQL. So guys, in this particular question, we have to define what is a view as a virtual table that dynamically retrieves the data from the underlying table. So this is a clear-cut definition of view, and once you do that, you have to explain what is a materialized view. So materialized view basically stores all of the result sets of a query physically, and this allows faster access, but it also requires manual refreshes. So once you have mentioned the definition of view and materialized view, you can also explain the difference, and which is the core thing of this question. So you can say that views are suitable for real-time data, whereas materialized views are ideal for performance optimization in the read-heavy scenarios. Now, what do you mean by read-heavy scenarios? So there can be scenarios where you have to read a lot of data from the tables or the database. So at that particular time, what you can do is you can make use of materialized views. The next question is, what are the stored procedures and how can you create one in Postgres? So guys, to answer this question, first you have to define the stored procedures. So what are stored procedures? So they are nothing but reusable SQL code blocks that perform a specific task. And once you define the stored procedure, you can mention that how they are created. So basically, stored procedures are created using the create procedure statement. And for creating a stored procedure, you have to define the procedure name, parameters, and the SQL code block to encapsulate the logic that you're trying to implement. So basically, we are using the stored procedure to implement or use a particular logic on the database. The next question is, what are functions in Postgres and how they can be used to extend the SQL functionality? So basically, functions in Postgres are reusable SQL
or PL/PGSQL code blocks that encapsulate the logic for various tasks, and those tasks can be calculations, data manipulation, and the use of complex queries or nested queries as well. So they can also extend the SQL functionality by providing the complex or the custom operations, returning values or set of rows, and functions also enhance the modularity and the code reuse in Postgres. The next question is, explain the concept of replication in PostgreSQL and its benefits for the data availability. So guys, replication in Postgres involves copying data from one database server, which can be a master, to one or more standby servers, and they are also known as slaves. So the data transfer or the data copy can be synchronous or asynchronous depending upon the situation. Now, why do you copy data from one server to other server? So basically, this is done to improve the data availability, load balancing, and disaster recovery. For example, you don't want any of the servers to have a single point of failure. For example, if the master server that holds all of the database and the data, so if that particular server fails or crashes due to any reason, you always have backup in case of standby servers or slaves. So if the master fails, you have slaves or other standby servers as backup. So that is why you replicate the data on multiple servers in any databases. The next question is, what are some of the best practices for designing and maintaining a PostgreSQL database? So guys, for optimal design and maintenance of a Postgres database, there are various techniques or practices that you can follow. For example, you can normalize the data to reduce the data redundancy, and you can use appropriate data types and apply indexes strategically to enhance the query performance. So we have already seen these techniques in the previous questions as well. So apart from that, what you can do is you can regularly back up your data and monitor the performance, and you monitor the performance to identify the bottlenecks. So these were some of the best practices for designing and maintaining a PostgreSQL database. After this, we are going to cover the questions that are meant for the experienced candidates. I hope you have understood each and every question that we have discussed in this particular video. If at all you have any doubts or queries related to this session, then you can write them in the comment section and we will try to resolve your queries as early as possible. So guys, thank you so much for being with us and I wish you all the very best for your upcoming Postgres interview.